Rain or shine, it's here to make you laugh. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Ruff.
Anyways, we'll just jump right in.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Steamboat Comedy Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, yet again, Kyle Ruff, joined by Drew McElhenney. Say hello.
Ahoy, hoy.
And special guest, Mr. Matt Ruby.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming out, man.
Sure.
So we just got done, had a couple shows this weekend. I do a little recap here on how the whole weekend went. What was your quick overview of events this weekend?
Fun shows, good times. You got a hot thing going here, and some good time skiing. My first time ever skiing out west here in the Rockies, so that was nice to have that adventure. I hadn't been skiing in like decades, so it was a whole getting my legs under me kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's a whole muscle memory thing, so it felt like it came back to me eventually. And then just sort of interested to check out Steamboat, be here, and get the vibe on the town and all the tourists and the locals and what's happening.
Yeah.
The stoners, the skiers, what are the other people here doing?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's some looks now and again. I don't know. Drug addicts.
But they're still stoned. And
yeah.
yeah.
They're all stoned, obviously. But yeah, right on, man. It was cool. Yeah, the skiing, it comes back to you pretty quick, but what doesn't is the muscles that you use to do it. So
right.
it's a different level of sore.
I was hurting yesterday, just like the quads. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, dude. I was hurting too. I mean, I do it every day. And the ride out, so we finally got some snow Saturday, which was nice for you because we've been on like a snow drought. But at the end of the day, so it brought so many people out on Saturday that like by the time I got off work, I was skiing back at like 4:15, 4:30, and it was just decimated.
It's push piles, man. I hate push piles.
Well, it's push piles, and then underneath the push piles was all the ice that had been there forever. So it was like a giant. Everything was a mogul field with just like ice patches in between. So I was hurting.
And there's down. Zero visibility earlier in the day, so you're just sort of like feeling your way around. I'm
ski by braille.
Okay, yeah, this is. I'm using my sixth sense to go down these slopes.
The
and
white
then I'm wiping
womb.
out.
Yeah,
the white womb of death.
Yeah, it's bad.
When you're out there on like Tomahawk or whatever, and it's literally you can't. It's pure vertigo. You're just like, whoa, am I upside down right now?
Yeah. Am I in the snow?
Yeah, you can't see anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough. I bought clear lenses, which are fantastic. I'd recommend it to anybody. But even with my clears on, I couldn't see shit yesterday. So like even any kind of tint or anything wouldn't even help you. It was such bad visibility, which sucks because it's like. It was like relatively sunny too, so you're like, "Oh, it's probably not too bad." Then you get out there and you're like, "Why am I blind? Why can't I see anything?"
But you should be proud of yourself because you kept going. Whereas,
are you talking about comedy or skiing?
Skiing.
Okay,
yeah,
just making sure.
Yeah, the one thing you do actually pretty good, the skiing part. No, I'm just messing.
Yeah.
That was good.
Our former, the guy we had before you. He took one run.
Bruce? Yeah,
Bruce out of L.A. He took one run and then decided he was going to drink and smoke weed and ride the gondola all day.
That's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, he just did loops and drinking and smoking.
And they got that little roller coaster at the beginning of the mountain. I could see if you got enough weed and you're like, all right, I'm just going to ride around on this thing all day.
Laps on the coaster. Yeah.
That gets expensive, unfortunately.
Yeah. I guess I've only rode it once, and it was all right.
It's okay as long as you don't get some little Nancy in front of you that's hitting brakes all the way down.
Yeah.
They should just take the brakes off that.
Yeah.
It's a coaster.
Just deal with
it. Like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Roller coasters don't have brakes.
Yeah, and you're not going to come off of it.
No. So it should just like click at the top and just be natural gravity should just take you. No brakes, no nothing. But
right?
We're going and when it's done, we're done.
Yeah, because traffic jams happen on that thing, man. You get like one lady going real slow and all of a sudden there's like 7 cars and everybody's just going down real slow. Sometimes they usually let you go again if that happens.
How many times have you rode it?
I got kids,
so
I've done it a few times.
I was going to say, you're like quite the expert.
Yeah, I've done the mini golf course many times too.
Oh, is the mini golf there actually sweet or not?
It's actually a nice course. It needs more shade.
Yeah.
It's a nice course, but we don't need to talk about mini golf.
I had an idea for like a dumb video to do where we all play mini golf, but whoever gets like the lowest whoever gets last in each hole has to like drink like an airplane shooter, and then we just see who can make it to the end.
That'd be interesting, actually.
Could be a good video, or we'll just die of alcohol poisoning.
One of two.
Yeah. As if we need more reasons to drink in Steamboat
I
Springs.
think we've trained long enough that we'd be able to handle a couple of
I think so.
Yeah, my nephew loves mini golf, and like so I've wound up playing way too much over the past few years, and he's like super competitive about it too. It's like you can't be that aggro about being like a mini golf champion, you know?
Yeah, right?
It's just like, dude, you know the course. That's all that's happening here. You've done this before.
Yeah. It's like you can do one phase of golf.
Yeah.
Relatively
And
well.
it involves knowing where the holes in the windmill are.
Exactly, yeah. I love mini golf. It's been too long.
Well, just to clear something up, too, for our listeners, if they listened to the last podcast, my name is not Kurt.
Yes.
Okay, it's true. I'm not Kurt. Let's just make that clear right
Bruce.
away.
I was going to say, Bruce, yeah, he didn't ski, and it's like, fine, I want people to do whatever they want to do, but like, it's such a hassle for me. Like, I bring comics in, I gotta like go to like the ticket office and get them special tickets, and like get them gear and get them like helmets and all this stuff and like rentals.
And comedians are children. We're babies. We need hand holding every step of the way.
I like hold their hand and like walk
Yeah,
them over.
yeah.
Like, this is a pole. You need 2 of these.
Yeah.
But then we do go through all of that. And he takes like 1 lap and he's like, I'm gonna smoke weed. And I was like, I could have just done nothing. I could have just not done any of that.
Totally.
Got you a foot passenger ticket.
Did he do like a lesson or anything, or he did?
No, I offered him a lesson.
Because it's like if you're not from here, it's like a big mountain. It's a little intimidating. You're just
Yeah.
like, if you don't know how to ski at all, like I could see someone be like,
Yeah, and it's also the conditions are kind of have been rough for
Right.
a while. And
Well, I was lucky too because I have friends out here, so like they kind of showed me the ropes and like
Yeah.
took me around the mountain and helped me figure stuff out. So that was
Right.
a good like kind of entry program. So I
Right.
wasn't just on my own being like, I'm on oops, the black diamonds. How did this happen?
I'm rolling down vortex right now.
I need to be steered towards Why Not. That was my favorite trail. Why Not is just the green dot that slowly goes back and forth down the whole mountain. I'm like, this is where I am. And also my philosophy on life. So perfect. All right. Why not?
That's like my nightmare run is Why Not, because
Really?
I have kids. So I spent
Oh, you're on it
I
all the
spent
time?
about 6 years on Why Not. I'm not on it anymore.
Yeah.
But it was brutal and in a snowplow the whole way down. So
yeah,
my
yeah.
feet would
Going
be
2 miles an hour.
cramping at the end of the day.
Well, that's what I realized. Like the most dangerous thing isn't the mountain; it's the kids.
Oh.
Because when they wipe out, they don't wipe out in a straight line. They'll just
No.
all of a sudden veer at a 90-degree angle,
Yeah.
like right in front of you. You're like, "What, dude? I'm gonna go over the edge, just trying not to hit your 5-year-old." But I feel like once if they're in traffic, you just got to go run over them, right?
I've
You just
picked a
gotta-
kid up. I've actually
You just scooped him.
Yeah, scooped him up before I hit him. I was like, whoa, and then you set him back down.
Yeah, it's sketchy. It's the other people. I'm way more afraid of other people than
Sure.
any run or
Yeah.
any tree.
Absolutely.
I was skiing down. I was going down Rudy's, like right when you get off the gondola. It's like a blue kind of to the left, and I was just starting out, and I'm maybe like 20 feet down the hill, and all of a sudden, a loose snowboard goes through my feet, like just right through it, and I was like, whoa! And all of a sudden, I was like, oh shit, I need to stop this thing. So I start like skating, going fast, trying to catch it, and sure enough, there's this one old dude, maybe like 150 yards down, and he's just doing like the slow pizza
no.
back and forth. No one else within like probably 200 yards any other direction. This one guy, and I was like, please don't hit that one guy. And of course, like a heat-seeking missile, it just blasts this dude. And he rolled over and was like, where am I?
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah. And I had to like chase it. Then after that it kept going, so I had to chase down the snowboard, and sure enough 3 little kids come up behind me and they're like, sorry about that. And so I just gave them a lecture for about 5 minutes
I'm sure
on
that worked.
safety. Yeah, I'm sure they probably like, fuck off, old dude, and then they kept going. And
Yeah, I don't wear a helmet because of skiing or trees or anything. I wear a helmet for walking through the gondola square.
seriously.
Because people are like, hey, what's that over there? Clack, right in the
Yeah,
side of the
they
head.
spin
Oh,
around
with
and
the skis,
just
yeah.
I'm glad I had my helmet on for that.
like a Three Stooges sketch.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
Especially when there's a band playing down there. Was the band playing when you got done yesterday?
Yesterday, Saturday.
watch
at the
a little
end.
bit of it?
No, I was done.
Uh,
I was done. I was
Fuck
like,
that.
Also, we had the show. I was just like, just take me home and like let me get these goddamn boots off.
Yeah, right. Who was playing yesterday? Somebody good?
The Dirt Diggers or something like that.
Dirt Diggers?
Something like that out of Humboldt County, California.
My
they
parents
had
used
like
to live there.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Were they also dirt diggers?
No, they had out in Humboldt County. It's a bunch of timber people and fish fans.
And yeah, weed growers.
And
Yeah.
weed, the really good weed.
Before weed was like legalized everywhere.
It was pretty
Humboldt
much legal there.
Yeah, Humboldt was. There's bushes everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
used
like
to-
perfect climate for it. It's like the most moderate temperature in the whole country. It's like always between like 38 and 54 degrees all year.
Okay, is that close to Willits, California? You know where that is?
I don't. It's just south of Oregon on the coast.
Okay, so that's
like
farther
Eureka. Yeah.
Okay, I went. I had a buddy of mine who lived in Willits, which is probably it was closer to like the Redwoods, I guess, more like
Well, it's
2/3 of
kind
the
of
way
same
up.
area.
Yeah, but it was similar climate. And he was telling me we went to the bar and there was just like all these like nasty wooks, just white kids with dreads all over the place. And he was like, I hate these goddamn trimmigrants. I was like, what? It's like an immigrant who comes in just to trim weed. It's like these
Oh,
fucking
trimmigrant.
trimmigrants.
You live with those.
Yeah, I do.
Now you live with trimmigrants.
Well, but they already trimmigrated personally, permanently. So
now a wook. This
No,
is a term I haven't heard
I've
before.
never heard
I've
of
never
wook.
heard of wook.
so a
Tell-
wook is like
like a Wookiee from Star Wars.
I don't know if that's actually the origin or the etymology of that, but it's they're just dirty, like the kind of people who go to like fish festivals. And
White dudes with dreads.
white dudes with dreads, really
Okay.
smelly. They
Yeah.
like Sublime and they like fish, and they usually have gauges in their ears. They're gross.
Clothes are usually
Gotcha.
pretty baggy.
Yeah,
And then there's woodsy.
Some tattoos.
Yeah,
probably
maybe,
some
yeah,
tattoos.
probably.
Probably more
The
piercings.
gauges I never
Tribal
understood.
tattoos probably more. And then there's
Yeah, you get-
woodsies. Woodsies are kind of the same thing, but they live in the woods. They're the type of people that they're like homeless,
Okay.
but they choose to live in the woods.
I think we say housing insecure now.
Yeah,
maybe in the big city.
unhoused
So I
persons.
guess they're forest insecure. They're forest secure, housing insecure. I guess is the way to put
Very
it.
forest secure.
Yeah. You sleep in the woods. Yeah, pretty much.
I've never heard of a woodsy.
Yeah, it's more of a San Juan down near Telluride, Durango, southern Colorado, where it's a little bit warmer. It'd be miserable to be a woodsy up here.
Yeah, you'd be a frozen woodsy.
Yeah, it'd be really cool.
Be a woodsicle.
But they're cold down there too, but it's a little different climate. But yeah,
Gotcha.
woodsies, that's popular down in Telluride. A lot of woodsies. You see them come into town, buy their shit, or raid the free box. They have a free box in Telluride, and so they come and raid the free box with anything that's any use of them, and then they go back up into the woods.
The free box like at the resort, like a Lost and Found.
It's kind of like that, but it's downtown and on one of the side streets, just off Main Street, and it's just like you can just put anything in there. And
Some from Woodsy will
yeah,
come in
we
and take it back to his
we
lair.
had a bong in our house that we'd gotten out of the free box. It just needed a little work.
They have those in New York now too, just like a fridge, like on a corner in Brooklyn, where people like drop off food and like whatever you want, take it, kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's just like, all right, so we're all just sort of borderline homeless now. That's our life that we're
We're all
living.
homeless
Cool. All right.
together.
Yeah. All right.
How's New York like coming out of the pandemic?
It's doing better now. I think it's like I think springtime will be pretty ripe because it's like just wintertime kind of sucks there anyway. So like all the people who were in like Miami or Austin probably just stayed there. But I think springtime, a lot of people will come back. City's coming back to life. Feels a little bit younger now, which is kind of cool. I think
Everybody else died off.
well, no, everyone who was like going to move out of the city in 5 or 10 years just did it now.
Okay.
So you had this layer of, people in both age and sort of money, who like could go somewhere else who were just like, okay, well, screw this. We're out of here. And then that opened it up for like some, just fresh blood. And so I think there's some exciting stuff happening, but we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I think the big reveal is how much like of the city runs on tourists and then also office workers. So the tourists will come back. The worry, I think, is like, are offices just gone forever? Is that a thing that comes
Pretty
back? Do
much.
people do 2 days a week? Because there's just like a whole infrastructure set up around like feeding those people and just like the whole neighborhoods around like office buildings. And
Yeah.
so like I think that's the question of like, okay, what happens, with all that?
Makes sense. I mean, there's in so many cities, like Denver definitely has it, where there's kind of like, you see it a lot by the airport, whereas there's just a bunch of chain restaurants and it's next to like big office buildings and like corporate buildings like that. And it's like, if everyone's working from home, what happens to that Chick-fil-A
Seriously.
or whatever? Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, and I mean, but I think there was some exaggerated, like, oh, New York's dead kind of stuff, and I always thought that was BS because, like, I think New York is like an idea of like there's some like kid in Oklahoma who's like a teenage like gay dude who's a fashion designer and is
like, I'm going
dying to
bright
leave his
lights.
small town and go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And where's he going to go? Miami or Austin or Nashville? Like he's still going to want to go to New York. It's still going to mean something to people, and so
Sure.
I think that as like an idea, I feel like New York can never really die because it's the place that people who don't fit in wherever they are go to. It's the mecca for like the outcasts or people who want to make it, or artists, or people are just looking for something different than where they're from. So to me, on some level, if the city gets cheaper and all these like rich people move out and there's more affordable housing, it could actually be a good thing for the city, because it was turning into a little bit of like VIP club in Manhattan. It's just like impossible for artists to live there, or for like a band would never come out of like the Lower East Side again, because it's all like condo buildings now. So I think, sometimes there's a little bit, there's just a little things that get a little sketchy, a little dicey, that can be good for like the energy of a city. You just don't want it to be at the point where it's like, okay, I'm scared to ride the subway after midnight. That's the kind of stuff you want to avoid. So, so you're skating a line. That's
interesting. So we just had Bruce Gray was here last time, and we were talking about like what the comedy scene like is in LA, kind of coming out of COVID, and our old homie Mr. MK Paulson was talking about it a lot too, because MK was a pro comic living in LA, and he actually moved to Steamboat because he was like, I need to change a pace, and LA is pissing me off, and then he was here for about 2 months and broke his ankle snowboarding and had to move back. But anyway,
because his insurance didn't work here.
Yeah, he had California state insurance.
LA sucked him back in.
Gets him back.
Just when you think you're out, they pull me back in. LA is kind of like the mafia in that way. I can see that.
Right. But he was saying like the spots are kind of weird, because like a lot of the venues aren't open like 7 days a week like they used to be, and then also on top of that, there's been a lot of like bored celebrities who have been like, well, I'm going to go try my hand at stand-up, or like I used to do it back in the day, I'm going to go do it again. And so like a lot of spots for like the middle tier dudes like himself are just getting squeezed out, and even like open mics are hard and stuff. Have you seen similar things like that in New York, or not so much?
Not so much. I think LA and New York have different vibes. Definitely like all that celebrity type stuff it happens more there. New York is, sometimes the analogy I use is like, theater versus film. Yeah. Like, for actors, like Hollywood is, going to have more of the film actors, where New York will have more of the stage actors. So, and I think similar is true for comedians. It might not be people who are as famous, but it's super talented people who are just like grinding away. But we don't have like the celeb drop-in type stuff the way they do in LA. And I think they had, we had rougher pandemic out of the gate, but then I think we managed it, in a way that like comedy's been back in New York for like over a year, pretty much at a consistent level, with clubs open and everything, firing. And I feel like LA seems like they've been masked up, and a little more like comedy shows where people are wearing masks suck. And I think that's been something that's happening there. So if they're dealing with that, like screw that. But like I would say in New York that like things have been, kind of, I don't want to say normal, but definitely like, churning and going. And also what you've had is like Broadway was shut down for a while and stuff. So like comedy was sort of like the only game in town if you did want to go out. And like, because live music also, I think they had a lot of problems like booking tours. Like, people would book tours and then cancel them and all kinds of, so like music venues and Broadway shows were kind of down. So then comedy, I think, became more of a draw, because like there wasn't that many other options on the menu. So, we've got a show that we do on Wednesday nights that's at New York Comedy Club that's been sold out a lot lately and just going well. So it's like, I think New York has been doing pretty well comedy-wise. I think the rest of New York, I'm not sure is like it's come back full throttle yet. But like I said, I think in the spring, maybe that's when things come back to life.
Right on.
I think comedy kind of needs like what rap had in the 90s. I think we need a little West Coast, East Coast little battle going on. You guys need to start talking a little trash back and forth.
New Yorkers definitely talk trash about LA comedians for sure. Yeah.
We need to get it more ramped up into the public eye.
If you really like jokes that end in applause breaks instead of laughs, then LA is the place to go. How about that? There
Shots fired. Shots fired.
So true. I hate applause comedy. That's such a thing now. Yeah, it's LA.
Really? Because I'd kill for an applause. A laugh or anything. I'd kill for it.
Drew's like, just make noise, please. I'm here. I'm trying.
I was just going for the moans and groans last night.
You got that one down.
I do have that one down.
The awkward silence, too.
I should have been like, just when you thought I couldn't get worse, and bam, I kicked you in the face.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I always like picking the brains of people who come in, just because we're in our own little bubble. here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stereotype, and obviously there's exceptions, but it's like New York is a little more like about like comedians who are like good writers and sort of about the jokes, and that's the main focus. And New York is a place where you get good, and LA is a place where you get paid and you get writing gigs or other jobs.
Yeah.
And the stand up there might be a little bit more good performers on a performance versus writing spectrum. That is going to be more people who lean towards the performance versus the writing sort of thing. But like these days, like a lot of people are going back and forth between them, and there's I think it's a stereotype that's got a little bit of truth, but there's plenty of people who are the opposite.
Yeah, I think LA comedians, and I'm talking off of no experience whatsoever, which I'm good at, but I think it seems like LA comics, they adjust their comedy a lot, because if they want to get that writing job on a TV show or even get a spot on a TV show like a Kimmel or something like that, they kind of have to adjust their comedy, right? Because it's got to fit into a box. Whereas in New York, you're going to get the gruff, grindy kind of comedy. Maybe I'm speaking out of.
I mean,
like
I think when you're the actual gig, once you land it, the comedy you're writing is going to be a little bit softer, gentler, typically.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's just more of an attitude of like New York is a little more grimy and dirty and like
I'm walking
sketchy
in.
and just attitudey, and LA is a little more yoga and pleasantness and sunshine. So I think just sort of like that'll be reflected in the comedy that you get from both.
I
those
think maybe
places.
I got that feeling from a little bit from what Bill Barr moved to LA, some of the things he said, and then also Anthony Jeselnik talked about how his writing skills weren't really fit in very well in LA because of his comedy. He would get a job as a writer, and they would use like none of his jokes.
Really?
Well, he's super dark too.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's cool. So I don't know. What were your impressions of the shows this weekend?
Super fun. Schmiggity's.
Schmiggity's.
Hell of a name for a place. Like I said, it sounds like a venereal disease.
I would say it sounds like a slur for Irish people.
Yeah, those goddamn Schmiggity's.
Goddamn Schmiggity's moving in the neighborhood.
No, super fun. Like good crowds. Like interesting mix of people. Everyone's super white. Not a lot of diversity here. So I had my whole. I had heard about the white powder. I know about all the white power here that's going on.
It's the only power we got.
Yeah, like you got white dudes in knit caps and white dudes in baseball caps, all kinds here. So, but yeah, it's super fun. And like, I think a good mix of like tourists and locals. So you get that, like, it's good when a crowd isn't like completely like, exactly the same. So I think it's cool to have like some of the local flavor here. And then clearly people were in from out of town. And, you guys were great. Other comedians, fun to see what's going on in the local scene.
Yeah, thanks,
coming
buddy.
up and, it's just sort of a good time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, we had a great turnout. And a ton of tourists. That's how it's been lately. I've been doing everything I can to market to locals, and it's all that none of them come anymore. It seems like it's all tourists in the last couple of shows. I did have a lot of people from the mountain. I've been doing like a deal for like the ski employees get like half off tickets and stuff, and it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I like that gig too, because those guys need half price. I mean, they work for the mountain.
And also, like, it incentivizes them to go. Because one of those things where if I was like, hey, tickets are $10, they'd be like, I don't know. But if I'm like, tickets are $20, but I'll give you half off, they're like, what a deal.
Everyone loves a bargain.
Everyone loves a bargain. So,
and like I pointed out on Friday night, it's the same price for a show now that it was back in November and December. Steamboat comedy is the only thing that hasn't gone up in price over the last like 2 months.
We are inflation proof.
We are. We're just charging the same flat rate.
We need a supply chain crisis to justify a rate increase.
Yeah, right. We're out of microphones.
There you go. We had the special order microphones.
Yeah,
we had to fly them in.
I did try, dude. I've been trying to buy just a regular wooden stool to have on stage.
Yeah.
The wooden stool market is out of control. You can't do it. I went through Walmart for hours, and every single one of them was sold out. And the only one I could find was like $80 for a stool.
Crazy.
And I was like, I'm not, just out of principle, I'm not paying $80 for a
They're all on
stool.
some ship in the Pacific in a crate, just,
yeah, exactly.
stuck or something.
Apparently.
So last night at our show, we had a band playing after us, and they had like so much equipment on stage that we had like about a little 5 foot by 5 foot.
We were boxed in.
We had a comedy
boxed.
hallway.
What's kind of the worst stage situation?
Ooh, yeah.
What's
What's the worst setup you've ever been in?
I did a college gig in Maryland that was inside a school cafeteria that was like the size of a football field. and there was like all the way in the back people on computers, and then there's like 8 of them. Then in the middle, like 50 yards down, like 8 people playing Magic the Gathering. And then in front, just like 4 people and the school mascot who wandered in the middle of my set in this giant like bird outfit and just sat there. And like the only way I could tell he was laughing was like his beak would just like move up and down.
Was he doing like laugh like motions? Like,
No, he just like and then stuck around for like 20 minutes and then just walked out. I was like, did I just hallucinate that? Like was I just bombing so hard that I started tripping and just imagine that there was like this bird mascot here just nodding at my jokes with his giant beak. And so then I just kept powering through and be like, all right, Magic the Gathering people, I hope you enjoyed that, and just took my paycheck and went home, But it was a decent paycheck. I mean, sometimes the people who know the least what they're doing pay the most.
Oh, yeah.
The college gigs are the best ones, is what people say money-wise.
Yeah, but you're paying a price with your soul. So
yes, I've heard that as well.
Is it worth it to you in that end is kind of the question.
Well, I've heard, too, a lot of comics are like, I don't want to do college gigs anymore because they're so hypersensitive about what you say.
Yeah, my comedy would never.
No. Mine probably wouldn't either.
No, probably not.
Your bombing Ukraine joke might be a tough sell there.
Yeah.
What,
that's not funny.
Too soon.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's also, comedians love bitching about that all the time. It's also, I think, like, hey, it's just like, it's sort of like surfing, or like if that's where the culture is, then you can either fight against it or ride it, or like also to me it comes down like, do you really care about this joke that's offending these people? Is it something you really believe? Then go for it, then go through with it. If it's not, then just like move on, because it's like maybe like 20-year-olds are thinking different than 50-year-olds now, and you just gotta like accept that, because that's what happens in societies a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a cultural turnover, and it's.
I guess to me, it's just sort of like the people who are complaining and offended and like super woke about stuff. That to me is super tiring, and I'm over it. But also the people who like their whole thing is complaining about cancel culture and about how people are too woke. Yeah. That also seems super hack to me. And like, we get it. It's like just both sides just seem to me like unoriginal thinkers, just sort of spouting the same talking points. I'm like, I don't know. None of you are saying anything interesting. Do you have an interesting perspective on like cancel culture or people getting offended? Then that I'm down for. But if you're just going to complain about it on either side, I'm just like, I've heard it before. Let's move on with our lives.
I mean, kind of just how America is on everything, right?
I mean, kind of.
Pretty much.
Humans love to bitch.
Yeah.
you know?
Or pick a tribe. It's like, which team are you? And I'm like, I to me, like the cool thing about comedians is you're no team. You're your own team.
Yeah. You're one-man team.
You're just like, as soon as you start to sense that you're part of like some tribe or mob where everyone agrees with you, you need to move in the other direction, because that's not going to be funny, like or interesting or unique. So as soon as like I also don't like any like mob scene or any group where everyone agrees with me. Nothing disturbs me more than being around a bunch of people who agree with me. Like what is wrong with you people? What happened to you?
Yeah, don't like what I said. I barely
like what I said. I think I need to switch teams here and like figure something else out.
Seriously.
And I always loved like Jerry Seinfeld. One of my favorite things that he ever did. He won some comedy award, like the American Comedy Award or some fancy thing, and he comes up and he's giving his acceptance speech, and he's like, I got to be honest, I don't think comedians should be accepting awards. This is the opposite of comedy. Me being up here taking, you're where I should be. Like every comedian should be in the back row making fun of this entire award show. And I always thought that's the true mentality of a comedian. Like you don't want to be the hero or the champion and everyone agrees with you. Like you should be in the back making fun of the hypocrisy of everyone
pointing
else.
Out whatever is flawed in this whole situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I like that.
I was wondering when you did your QAnon joke, and then you make the comment about the Catholic Church. I was waiting to see if you were going to get anything. I was just waiting to see if there was going to be some Karen out there that was going to be like, hey, I'm Catholic. Or
Well, I think it's pretty well documented what these Catholic priests have been up to.
Yeah.
If you just found out about it through me,
well,
oh man, we really got to talk about some stuff here. You're not going to like what the Boston Globe had to report for decades.
Yeah,
like if I'm your news source on the Catholic Church being up to some shenanigans, well, you're in for a rough ride ahead.
Welcome to 1995. Yeah.
I also feel like Catholic people, they're like, yeah, we did that. What? Whoopsie. Like Catholic people don't seem to be offended when you're like, yeah, all your priests are pedophiles. Like, Not all of them, okay? You know, like, all right.
It's like, I guess what else can they say at this
Exactly.
point?
You're just sort of like, sometimes you just got to take it, you know?
Yeah. It's like, yeah. Some
I'm not
kids
talking
got
about the altar
diddled.
boys. I'm talking about the Catholics.
Hey.
All right. All right. All right.
Where's the snare?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else I was going to talk about. I just had something in my head, and now it just disappeared. Like all of my
That's
good
the weed.
ideas.
The weed's
It's
working.
the weed,
Yeah,
dude.
you're too young for that to start happening.
Yeah,
That's
fuck.
more stuff my age.
That's how I know edibles are working for me. Is like I'll start a sentence, and like midway through the sentence, I'll be like, I don't remember where this was
So
going.
I was gonna.
That's always been the because I like performing stone, but I avoid it for the most part just because of that, just like the memory stuff and like just that your slight delay of like brain functioning that I'm like sometimes you need every part of your senses, but like it can be fun sometimes. So you guys ever perform stoned? Or
It's
you're
too
all-
late for me, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, Matt doing his jokes last night about, you know, like buying weed and like the way I used to have to do it. I'm like, the way you used to have to do it, dude, I was buying weed when you were like in diapers, man. like
There's the shittiest weed,
I
too.
smoked myself into just completely always being slow and forgetful. Pretty much.
I know. Well, I'm old too. Like buying weed, it used to be like you got weed. Now people are like, oh, what kind is it? Is it indica, sativa?
I
Was
know,
it this
dude.
blend? I'm like, I don't know. It's just weed.
Yeah, it's
That's
just
all.
weed.
I like. We were just happy
Yeah.
if it was weed. If it got you high in any way,
Right.
We're like, bring it on.
Like,
you know?
cool.
And now people are doing that with mushrooms too. I got some shrooms recently, and someone was like, oh, what kind are they? I was like, I didn't know there were kinds.
Yeah,
Yes.
there are.
It's
but
the kind that's going to make me hallucinate.
it's
That's
rare.
the type.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rare to find somebody that actually knows, though. Like,
But I think it's coming. I think that's a sign.
Yeah.
Like,
As they're
what happened with
decriminalizing it.
weed 10 years ago is now happening with shrooms, where
Yeah.
people are going to be like shroom sommeliers or whatever.
I heard one of my roommates were like, "Oh, I got some of these mushrooms. They're what do you call them? Golden teachers,
I've heard that name.
something like that."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, "Wait, what?" Like that
Yeah.
was the first. I was like, "Oh, you know the name of
The
it?"
the
Yeah.
first names I ever knew was when I was living in Telluride. I had because they have a mushroom festival in Telluride.
Oh, really?
But it's like regular mushrooms. But of course,
Of course,
the fun ones find their way in as well.
As they
And
do.
everybody comes from around the country, and they were called Microsofts. And so
because they'll buy your business. Is
they
that
buy
what-
no, they grow underneath the security lights at the Microsoft plant in Redmond, Washington.
That's hilarious.
And they have these really powerful security lights that are on 24/7 or whatever.
Yeah.
So they grow underneath those lights, and all these hippies will sneak out there at nighttime and like crawl on their bellies and snip all these mushrooms out, and then
And
run
it
back
sounds
into
great,
the
but it
woods.
also sounds like the kind of story that a bunch of stoners would believe.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
a bunch of people on shrooms would be like, I can't
Well, they
believe that,
certainly
man.
look different than any of the other
We got to thank
psilocybins.
Bill Gates for this trip we're on right now, you know?
But your question, so I was doing edibles recently with my shows because I was using it to calm my nerves. I was having some nerve issues, like being nervous on
Sure,
stage,
sure.
and it just started one day, and then I couldn't get rid of it. So I was using edibles, and that was kind of helping, like, you know, a couple edibles and a drink or two, and I'd feel a little bit more relaxed on stage. But smoking weed and trying to do a show, no, man, I
Interesting.
can't think at all. Like, I get up there, and I'm like,
See, smoking doesn't do as much to me. The edibles are what get me. But
Yeah.
I hear you.
edibles just make me feel good. Smoking drowns my head.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah,
me go,
I get that.
"Ugh."
The Microsofts thing is interesting because the other type of shroom that I've heard, I think it's called penis envy, which I'm always like,
Yes,
what
I've heard
a
that one.
strange
I've
name
never
for a
heard that
mushroom.
one.
I'm like,
Yeah.
who's the guy who came up with that? You know, he's like, I'm gonna make you all say penis envy, so I'm not the only one. All right.
Yeah.
And
He's like
he-
pulls out the mushroom. He's like, "Man, I wish my dick was as big as this mushroom." And they were like, "What?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, I mean, it's what it's called is a penis envy,
and then
right?"
some other guy was like, and I got Microsofts. No, it's from Microsoft. I wasn't talking about my dick. I didn't.
And I got micro penis, Microsoft software.
I have flaccid shrooms.
Yeah, they crossbreed him. I got the micro penis.
There you go.
I got micro penis envy.
Oh man.
If you're just hard all the time, then you get the soft
and
envy.
you were making fun of, in fact, Reed Belamonte, who lives here in the house. You were just talking to him out in the living room. He said one of his favorite jokes last night.
We're not in a house. We're in a fancy studio.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
talking
We're in
about?
The Steamboat Comedy Studio, dude. What are you talking about?
But he was saying that he liked when you were making fun of microdosers. I take what did you call it? A lethal amount?
Heroic dose.
A heroic
dose.
dose.
Yeah.
That's
So
Terrence
that-
McKenna, right?
He said
Yeah,
that
yeah.
cracked him up the most, and he goes, "I love when," but I've actually loved microdosing. So I
get it.
I
I'm
know.
not actually
No, I know.
anti-microdose,
I know.
but I am. Here's the thing. I think there's this whole movement in our culture right now where we're trying to make like drugs safe for soccer moms. And so like government officials will get on board and make it like an acceptable thing in society. And so I'm happy people are out there doing that. That's great. And they need to pitch it as like, this is therapeutic, this is medicinal, and you should do it in a clinic with a licensed, therapist or guide who will take you through all this. And this is what has to happen in our society in order to make stuff legal or, whatever medical version of that is.
Yes.
And so I get that. And I'm happy they're doing that work. But I also want to just grab people and be like, also, you can take a proper dose of mushrooms. You can take the real amount, go out into the woods, have a great conversation with your friends, and realize the transcendent nature of the universe and experience ego loss. And that is also valuable as opposed to just taking a little bit so your hands don't shake or you're more creative at work or something like that.
That's where I was
just
going with it.
like there's something about like this the original way to do it, which was like giving it to like a boy becomes a man in some ceremony, and you take him out in the woods and you give him a heroic dose of shrooms and he realizes the nature of the universe. And like I want to advocate for that as well, as opposed to just the soccer mom version that I think is happening in a lot of our society. So that's me on my soapbox about like taking a proper. I'm just saying, take the proper dose. Like a micro dose it's like too little.
Yeah,
take a proper
yes.
dose of mushrooms.
But I would like to do it. I haven't done it yet, and I'm reluctant to do it like at a show. I'd be more willing to do it like at an open mic. But I've wanted to microdose and try a comedy because I certainly have a different level when I'm on mushrooms.
Sure.
I have friends that are like, dude, I just love to trip with Drew because he'll make me pee my pants. He'll just keep me laughing nonstop. But that's weird because that's not how my first mushroom experience was. Mine was in a condo over at the Powder Ridge condominiums across town here in Steamboat.
Oh yeah.
And I was young. I didn't do any drugs. My gateway drug was mushrooms.
Nice.
I did mushrooms.
You did mushrooms before weed?
Before weed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was anti-drug. I was pretty straight-laced. And I had all these guys, they would always try to get me to do mushrooms. And I'd always be like, no. I was like, well, or they want me to smoke weed.
You were how old?
22, 21,
Wow.
22.
That's
I
wild.
I was 23 when I ate
I think
mushrooms.
I smoked weed the first time I was 13.
Yeah, no. I was offered weed all the time, especially
Yeah.
living in ski towns.
Yeah.
And I was always like, no,
Especially
I don't
looking
do
the way
that.
you do.
Yeah, I didn't look quite this way then. And I'd be like, no, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. And then I'd always tell people, but if I had mushrooms, I've always wanted to see what it'd be like to see a pink elephant like walk across my front yard or
That's not how it
something.
works.
Well, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then by the time they were like, oh, really? And then by the time they would find mushrooms or something, they'd come to me, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do it. And then one night I was in a situation with a bunch of people I didn't know, and we'd been partying all day, and these guys wanted me to do a bong rip, and I was like, no, I don't do that. I was like, but if someone had mushrooms, I'd totally be into that.
And they're like,
yeah, literally. It was like, oh, hold on a second. Open a drawer.
You
They're like, "Here
manifested. You manifested.
Yes,
some
and they were
things.
all, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and my buddy's like, dude, you got to do it now.
Careful what you wish
Yeah,
for.
and, but it was a great time.
yeah?
There you go.
It led to me smoking weed that night and getting laid like 2 weeks later. I lost my virginity because I ate mushrooms. My Republican senator dad is turning that off when he hears me talk about mushrooms.
Well, I have another mushroom psychedelic related rant, which is about people who complain about having bad trips. Or everyone's afraid of a bad trip, or I had this bad trip once.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to emphasize set and setting. Like, because
Yes.
anytime someone tells
You're
me
a
about a
big
bad trip,
McKenna fan.
I'm like, yeah, let me stop you right there. Were you at like some music festival with 18 people that you don't know and you got lost? And then there was like, it's always the same story of like, you were in a place where you shouldn't be doing mushrooms with people who you shouldn't have been doing mushrooms with, and you didn't have the right mindset.
Yes.
It's like, be with people you know and love, and in like the woods or by the ocean.
Great
or
sand dunes are awesome.
Sand
Lake
dunes,
Powell is
great spot.
Yeah, I just love being in the woods.
And go in with the right mindset of like, you want to be doing it and you're in that right headspace. And then I find it's pretty rare to like people have bad trips, but usually they're just going in and doing it in the worst possible environment. And they're like, yeah, so I don't like shrooms. I'm like, no, you don't like
Yeah, you
music
did it
festivals
wrong.
with people you hate.
Yes. No,
Yeah,
that's
you
exactly
didn't
it.
follow the instructions.
Yeah, I tell people like mushrooms are like a hammer or any other tool. You can use it to build a house, or you can use it to smash your own dick off. You know, you got to figure out how to do it right. That was the last time.
We're back to the penis envy. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yes.
Full circle.
That's the one. The last really bad trip I had was at a music festival, and it was I did everything exactly wrong. I was coming down off other drugs, and I took more than I had taken probably before, and I took it by myself.
Oof. Yeah.
And I ended up hiding in my tent, just like middle of the day. It was probably like 3 in the afternoon, and I like ran and hid in my tent for like 3 hours. It was the worst trip I've ever fucking had in my whole life. But also like some of the best times I've ever had have been on mushroom trips.
I'm with you. Changed my
Me
life.
and Reed have had a couple. We had one in college where it was like snowing, and we just went like 5-year-olds like ran through the woods and like just dumping snow on each other, and like the storm rolled in. Such a great time.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, well, like Michael Pollan writes all about psychedelics, and he uses this phrase I like, which is the betterment of the well. Because a lot of times we're always talking about like therapeutic value and people who are depressed or anxious and they take it and get better. But there's also, you can be fine and take mushrooms and get even better.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be curing some illness that you have. You can just be fine and be like, but I want to see more. I want to know more.
Sure.
It broke me out of my shell.
Totally.
I was a like, oh, I don't do that, and you guys shouldn't smoke weed kind of guy. Like I was kind of a douche, really.
Well,
and I ate mushrooms, and it like cracked all that shell off of me.
Because that's that control stuff. It's ego.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people are like, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. That's your ego being afraid of what you might have to confront or deal with if you actually like let go. And so I feel like a lot of people have like control issues. They're like, no, I don't like that. It's like, well, you just need to keep your hands on the steering wheel at all times.
Absolutely.
It's sometimes things can happen if you
sometimes
surrender
you
a little bit.
Go. Absolutely. That's awesome. I know you talked about it a little bit. I didn't know that you were such a mushroom fan.
Oh yeah, ayahuasca too. You ever hear about that?
Oh yeah, have you done it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that like? Was it wild?
It's the most significant spiritual experience of my life.
Did you go down to South America to do it?
I've done it in Peru, but most of the times I've been in America, in New York, actually, with a Peruvian shaman. I have.
It's called what? I'm not familiar with it.
Ayahuasca.
It's the way I describe it is it's a hallucinogenic tea that comes from the Amazon, and you do it in a ceremony with a shaman. And I wish there was a way I could talk about it without sounding like a douchebag, but there isn't. All right.
Is it a plant or is it?
It's from a root.
Goat,
you got a
sperm or something.
It's a vine that grows in the Amazon.
Okay, so it's a plant.
And it's DMT and this vine mixed together.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole sort of brew that is concocted. You drink it though.
I kind of, when I was younger, I always wanted to do like go to the desert, and do a big peyote thing.
You're still young.
Man, I'm kind of fading my way out of all that.
I thought you were gonna say out of life.
I'm turning 50 this year, and I got a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 9-year-old. It just doesn't really fit in my life. In fact,
got you.
After one of our comedy shows one night, a guy was at the club, and he's like, "Hey, I got some LSD." And I was like, man, back in the day, back when I was about Kyle's age, around 30, late 20s, 30s, I was just dosing 5 days a week. Like I was doing a ton
That's intense.
of acid.
That's intense.
That's a lot.
So I was like, dude, acid used to be my thing, but I hadn't done it in 20 years. And he asked me if I wanted to do something. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I haven't done that. And then I did it, and then we hung out for a while, and then I went home, and I had like 8 more hours.
Set and setting. I'm telling you.
Exactly, because I have my wife upstairs, I got kids in the house. I didn't have that the last time I did LSD. And it made a total difference, and I'm sitting downstairs in my living room, and I'm playing fish, and I'm sitting there going, oh, it's too loud. But it's on like volume 1. Normally I'd have it like on 10 and it wouldn't bother the family.
Yeah.
It was on 1 and I'm like, oh, it's too loud. Oh, they're going to come downstairs and find me.
You're very considerate when you're tripping. That's a good quality. Yeah.
Now she's going to listen to this podcast and the cat's out of the
bag.
bag.
That's the thing. You got to plan well when you take psychedelics, but the kind of people who take psychedelics are terrible at planning.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, you're really in the weeds.
And I don't
no pun intended.
I like mushrooms a lot. LSD is just, it takes so long.
Yeah,
it's just too
I'm
long.
more of a shroom over LSD kind of guy too, but it's just sort of what I came up on.
Yeah. I guess I did.
I like natural. I like shit that comes from the ground as opposed to a laboratory.
Yeah,
too.
Weird lab from who
Same
knows
here.
where. Yeah,
it's pretty much my rule nowadays. It's got to grow.
It's a good one. I'm the ayahuasca. A lot of different realizations, but one of them is about like just the level of plant intelligence and how plants are running the universe. How like this wood is actually a plant. Like these walls are made out of plants.
Yeah.
What we eat is made out of plants or eats other plants.
Yeah.
And like plants are like if you just look at them, like they are conscious and like growing towards the light and like communicating with each other and protecting each other in the forest. You know, if there's a one tree is getting poisoned by some birds, it'll communicate to trees on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wait a minute, are plants like running the universe, and we're just like have the ego that makes us think that we're the ones who are in charge of stuff, and just sort of on this depthful level of being like, oh wow, I never realized just how like intelligent plants are, because it's this subtle intelligence that goes over like thousands of years instead of like an SAT test or something.
Right. No, that's wild. And that's part of like the origin of ayahuasca. Joe Rogan talks about ayahuasca a lot. But I remember one of the things he brought up was that the two things that you combine to make it.
Yep.
There's like no reason why anyone would just do that.
Yep.
So they're like how did they find out? And they're like if you ask the shamans on there, like, oh, like the trees told us to do this, and it's like, fucking what?
Yeah, I believe the trees have told you a lot of things.
Yeah, probably.
Well, so much is like that. Like, who figured out how to make bread? Like, who was the guy who's like, oh, we got to get this flour, we got to take the yeast, we got to do this, we got to, and it's got to take this long, and it's going to rot. Like, I think there's just a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of people who died along the way figuring out which things we should mix and which berries and plants to eat. And it was just sort of like a, trial and error thing where eventually now we've filtered down most of the time to the things that actually work. But I think you're just in the jungle and you're bored. You're like, all right, let's grab this vine and this one and put them in a pot and see what happens.
And let's eat it. Or whatever. That's Spencer has a bit about that I like. He's got it's like the first guy who got drunk. And it was just he's a buddy of ours who does like open mics, and he's just like, I want to do the whole bit, but it's like we got this rotten fruit we're gonna throw out, and some brave guy was like, give me that rotten fruit. Let me try this out. And he's like, I'm gonna fight all of you, and also I'm gonna fuck your sister.
What is this fruit?
Yeah, this fruit is insane. Then the next day he's hungover, the first hangover, and he's like, this is it. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I lived at 27. I'm pretty old.
That's funny.
No, it's a good bit. Well, I mean, I know we got to get going.
Yeah. What do you got coming up?
Let's see. Well, we're on our way to Boulder, but no one will listen to this before then.
This will be tomorrow,
let's see. I'm going to be in Hartford, Connecticut at City Steam Brewery, middle of the month, and then North Carolina, Asheville, Raleigh, Durham. If you go to my social stuff, Matt Ruby Comedy on Instagram, mattrubycomedy.com. I'm on Twitter. The other stuff I post, tour dates there.
Sick.
And and then I'm in New York City, weekly shows at Comedy Cellar on Tuesday night and New York Comedy Club on Wednesday night. So I'm out and about telling jokes. Could just reach out. I'll tell you where I'm at.
How do you book your tours?
Me on a keyboard being like, hey, I'm funny.
Booking agent or
no, I mean that. Most of the stuff I do, I'm just doing on my own.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like most comics that I've booked out here, I know some of them have agents or managers and stuff, but I never talk to them.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of curious how that relationship
works.
works.
It's like if you're like a big draw, then you're making more money and you can you're giving a percentage to someone for making it all happen. But I'm still at a stage where I'm like, okay, like I need all the money I'm getting paid on this gig, but also I like doing shows where there's there's 50 or 70 people there. To me, that's still like a cool room to do and get out there and do it. I'm of the mindset, as long as I'm not losing money on the show and it's like a cool place that I want to go to anyway, like coming here and being able to ski and stuff is great, and just sort of like having an adventure,
We had when the Chief Theater was going, I was good friends with the guy that ran it, and he would hire comedians out of Denver, and one in particular, he hired him through a booking agent, and then when the comedian came up and did the show, he said, I'd love to come up here and do more shows. Here's my number. Don't call the booking agent.
Yeah.
And I always thought, man, I think the booking agent would be pretty pissed off if he found out that he was, doing that, because they'd be like, hey, what are you doing, man?
Well, that's like the Airbnb where you just like work out a side deal with the guy renting the place, and you're just like, let's not go through Airbnb. We don't need these people. Okay, You keep that half the commission. I'll keep half. We don't need to bring them into it.
But so when you're booking your stuff, though, you have a lot of credentials, right? You've been around a long time. You've done a lot of shows with other comedians and stuff. So you have. Is that how you book it? How do you?
I mean, I've got a couple albums and a special, and
So you say
credits,
you can
and like
listen
I
to it, or?
yeah, I mean, I try to reach, and like if I have. The good thing about New York is you got like other comedians all around from all over the country too. So if I'm going to Seattle, I might reach out to like a comic I know from Seattle and be like, "Hey, what's a good show to do there?"
Sure.
And that kind of voucher referral can help a lot. So I think that's a nice thing. And then I mean, just sort of being funny and having some evidence of it that you can show to people, and
Sure.
being flexible also helps too. Like sometimes if you just got some tentpole dates, like okay, I'm going to Asheville, North Carolina, and then I'm like, okay, what's around there? And be like, hey, I'm going to be in town on this week. What do you have? And like sometimes that is a good way to like fit in, and then opening up for other comics and featuring, and then you do a good job, and then tell the booker there, hey, I'd love to come back and headline sometime, and there's so you're just sort of hammering away from all different kinds of angles, really.
Cool. Yeah, networking always goes a long way. Just in
I
general.
mean, it's like it's cliche, but who it's totally helps with just kind of getting your foot in the door for a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got our buddy Corey comes up here all the time, and I'm going to Denver next weekend. So I just texted him. I was like, "Hey, you got a spot for me somewhere?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll find you something."
Totally great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff goes a long way. But yeah, so we can go ahead and wrap there. It's a
Thanks
pleasure,
for having
buddy.
me, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, great fun weekend. Appreciate it.
We
Yeah,
love
it was
you.
awesome. Let's
Love
do it
having
again.
you, man.
Let's do it again sometime. And yeah, we'll see. I'll be at Bandit Oak Brewery in Denver next week on Friday
With Corey.
with Corey. Yeah, it's a show he runs there. It should be a good time. And then for those who are new listening, I know we got some people that came out of the shows like, "Oh, Steamboat Comedy Podcast, we'll check it out." So for those of you guys just tuning in, check steamboatcomedy.com for all of our events. We still got the spelling bee every Wednesday, open mic every Tuesday. Our next Schmiggity show is the 24th and 25th.
We only have 2 more shows for the winter.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
got Robbie Bernstein's coming in the last weekend of March, and then 2 weeks later for closing weekend, we got Eddie Ift is coming up.
Nice.
So should be a great time.
And my favorite part is none of these guys look anything like their headshots. Robbie Bernstein looks like he's 18 years old. in his
I think that's a
headshot.
20-year-old.
Yeah.
Picture. Yeah, that's him in the corner right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does not look like
when
that.
Jackie and Kevin Flynn came through town, they were like in their 50s. Their shots were from when they were in their 20s. It was like, what is going on?
Fake it till you make it,
Yeah,
you know?
I guess,
Yeah,
you
I-
still had hair in yours.
That's tell me about it. Now it's getting depressing. Hold up.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I know, Drew. Thanks.
Cut that part out, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Rain or shine, it's here to make you laugh. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast.